This episode is sponsored by KITBASH.
So at a Debscon, I was at the bar one night, and I got chatting to this random guy at the bar. His name was Bill Makes.
Bill making stuff. They're talking about Bill making stuff.
Being very dour, and everything's like a chore, and everything's a bit of a pain in the backside. He's a bit fed up with everything, and he's actually, I'm going to break the bubble on his character. He's not like that at all in real life. Actually, a really lovely,
nice guy,
really lovely, warm chap.
No, me. Hello everyone, welcome to Bill Making Stuff episode 82. How you doing? You alright? Don't care. Today is going to be a pretty expansive episode. We're going to be making new characters for the world of the Gutterlands, which is a made up world by me. Please don't leave. I want to create a whole new faction of characters that can exist within this imaginary world. So that's what we're going to do. But how are we going to do it? Well, today we're going to be designing characters in our little sketchbook, and we're going to kit bash them using all the bits. I've got in this giant box of bits that really desperately need organisation. We're going to throw in a few little kids' toys in the mix. We're going to make some tiny little bits of coral reef, which I don't know how I'm going to do yet, but I'm sure we'll figure something out. We're going to sculpt with some green stuff and, add some details to our miniatures. If there's any green stuff left, we're going to make some new sculpting tools that I can use in a future build. And of course, at the end, we're going to paint the miniatures, and I'm going to provide you a bit of lore and a bit of backstory to this. I'm going to take a giant, big lore dump right on your face. And that's what we're going to do today. Yeah, that was a new bit where I tell you what's coming up in the video. I thought it was only polite, really. And, just in case you look away for a split second and I chuck in some weird technique that you didn't know was coming up, yeah, I thought it was a nice thing to do. Plus, I don't plan anything, so who knows what's coming up. Well, you do now because I just told you. But anyway, let's get on with making some characters. This is going to be a pretty long video, so, maybe get comfy, settle down, have a cup of tea, have a coffee, can of Coke, a beer. Or you can have some water. We don't judge here, I've drank water before. But let's get on. Yeah, they pop. So this is my sketchbook. I always like to sketch something before I build it, basically because I have ideas in my head that I know I will forget later on. So I like to get the ideas out and just pour them out into the sketchbook. I mean, not every idea I have. Some ideas I like to keep locked up in a little box in my head and wait for them to just explode out during a traumatic event. But this isn't a traumatic event. This is me making little characters for a tabletop game. Now, I really feel like I need to apologise for sounding extra sexy at the moment. I've got a bit of a cold and it's made my voice get a bit gruffly and, just like extra sexy. Extra sexy. So I should probably talk about the idea I have. I want to make a new faction for Gutterlands. There are already a few factions. There's the Rusters, there's the Colonists, which are basically the humans that live in Respite. There's the meaty ones, there's the bead bots, all sorts of things. I kind of wanted to go a little bit aquatic themed. I wanted to create a species that live in the sea, or like a type of mutant, but people with shells and coral reef heads and crab claws and lobster hands, that kind of thing, because I thought that'd be quite interesting to make and to, it would just look visually interesting. I mean, I've never really heard of it. I don't think anyone's ever done it before. I mean, I probably should do a quick Google search. I'll do a search now quickly. Yes, Pirates of the Caribbean had people that had shells and coral reef and crab hands, but no one remembers, those little obscure films. No one ever really watched that. So, I mean, other than that, it's pretty original. So as you can see here, I've adopted a grid system. It just basically means I divide the page into little squares that I draw separate drawings in. It's a grid system. I invented grids, as we all know. And I just want to just doodle. What sort of aquatic things can I add to these guys? And just get all my ideas out on one page and just see what sticks. What stuff I like, what stuff I want to keep, what stuff I want to get rid of. Maybe that guy's hair, I'm not too keen on that, but I do like his hand, so I may keep that. I don't know. The things I make in the end probably won't look anything like this, but this is just, as I said earlier, the creative process. I sound like a right twat today. Pirates are in this summer, obviously, and I think I've gone for a bit of a pirate theme, which isn't a bad thing. This guy's got a giant cannon in his arms. So I think eye patches, maybe like peg legs, maybe like a hook, ship anchors, things like that. I think that's what I'm going for. It depends if I can find any like anchors in my bits box. It depends if I can find anything in my bits box. You'll see later what I'm talking about. But I do have some toy crabs, so I think they may be coming out. So, looking over at these drawings, I guess I've just designed pirate-themed mutants, which isn't a bad thing. I think they sound like a fun thing to make. They're basically the things out of Pirates of the Caribbean. But look, I haven't seen a Pirates of the Caribbean tabletop game, ever. So, everything's reductive of something else. They kind of look a bit like Slanesh as well. God, I'm just the most unoriginal piece of there is. But then so is everyone else. So this video is sponsored by Squarespace. Now Squarespace is a website where you go to make websites. Now if you have no idea how to make a website, you don't know how to do with a HTML, is it HTML? I'm not sure. And you just want to make a website about things like, like a pickle website, for example. Like that, like pickle perfection. That's it, Bill. Click there. If you just want to make a website that's quick and easy and clean and nicely designed, then go to Squarespace. I made this website in it must have been like 0.5 seconds. Maybe a little bit longer, I'm not sure, but it was really easy and it looks pretty good, and I will add stuff to it at some point. But if you want to make your own website, there's a sale going on at Squarespace. There's a little link down below. Go and have a look. So here it is, my bitbox. I did warn you. Look at that. It's just got everything in one giant box. Now I don't recommend this for anyone else. I thought it was a good idea. Save some space, stick everything in one box. But I can't find anything. But I did find these little guys. I think they're from the Fallout Wasteland Warfare game. Some of them, anyway, and they're really cool little miniatures, but they tend to have that kind of raggedy, piratey look that I'm going to go for. I'll probably paint one of their rags green and pretend it's seaweed. So what is kitbashing? I usually scratch build, or I usually sculpt, or I usually make stuff with rubbish, but kitbashing is kind of like, it's the fun part of the hobby. It's the part where you just take a load of miniatures that you like and you cut them up and you stick them together to make new miniatures that you like. That's basically what I'm doing there. You just match the things up like that, see what looks good, and stick them together. It's really fun and easy. And I know what you're thinking, that arm's a bit big for that person, but that's fine. Now, I don't just kitbash with bits. I also buy little toys that I think I can use, like these little crabs and lobsters that I got from a theme park with my kids. And yeah, that's a pretty cool lobster hand. Slightly big, but we can fix that later. You just stick around. You won't even notice. I mean, you'll notice the giant crab hand, but you know it will look like it's supposed to be there. You know, if you're a mutant, aquatic themed pirate. Now, one of the funnest parts of kit bashing for me is accessorising your character or giving them new weapons. I like to give characters new weapons and accessories. I like to accessorise them, which, you know, also drill out the gun barrels. That's always important. There's not enough accessories for men, I thought about. You know, like you can wear a wristwatch. I can just about get away with a wristwatch. Maybe like a stud in my ear. But I live in a town where if I wear a stud in my ear, it could be the wrong ear, you know, and then they just think me and my wife's marriage is a sham. I guess what I'm trying to say is, unlike your dad, I'm not that into studs. I can take them or leave them. Kind of like what your dad does. So I should probably be explaining what's on screen at this very moment, not what your dad does in his spare time. But you can see, look, I'm just basically looking at other pieces, seeing which pieces go together. Like that hand looks like it's reaching for something. And what can he be reaching for? A giant sword on his back. So that's what I did. I stuck a giant sword on his back. And just what arms go with what? You know, that arm already has a gun attached. Result. There we go. There's my pirate mutant guy with a gun and a sword. It's kind of, I'm not sure how that sword's attached to him. We'll figure that out later. So looking at this guy here, I'm thinking, yeah, I'll cut them off at the waist. I think these are, you know, the muscles are just a little bit more impressive on this little piece, this little torso here, and stick it together. I mean, that looks kind of strange at the moment, but once it's painted, it should look fine. And let's give him a peg leg, because, you know, we need some more piratey themed things in there. And there we go. I think maybe that spear needs some work. A crab claw, why not? A head, we'll figure out the head later. Now this miniature is a little bit more rubbery than the other ones, which is fine. It doesn't matter. We're not going to know the difference at the end. I think it's a zombie from Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not sure, but we're going to just give him some giant lobster hands. You know, I don't think I'm going to give this guy any ranged weapons. He's going to be like the melee unit. You know, just he's going to be more mutated than the rest. He's going to be the weird cousin. You know. Because this guy is so mutated, I'm going to cut that head off and I'm going to swap it for something else that's probably not even really a head. I just want this guy to be extra crusty. One thing I always do think about when kit bashing is the silhouette of the miniature. You know, you want it to be kind of an exciting pose. I want this person to look like they're charging forward, going, "Arg!" or charge, you know, whatever pirates say when they charge forward, and just create an interesting silhouette, you know, like, because when they're all together you want them to be in different poses, like they're charging across a battlefield, whatever. Just keep that in mind. All right, that's the best advice you're going to get from me when kit bashing. Now let's stick some heads on these guys. Now this guy, we've got something special for him, but for these two, let's just find a head in my tiny little heads box. This is all I've managed to sort out, by the way. There's still like 1 billion heads in that box. So for the heads of these mutants, I want them to have big, giant, bulging eyes, kind of like fish. So I found all the heads I could with big, giant, bulging eyes, which is about 2. So I found that one, and I found this little head here. This little head here. Now, I think I might have to kind of make my own eyes later. Now, a lot of these weapons are from historical minis, and if we've learned anything from history is that weapons were a bit crap. So we're going to cut these little swords off, and we're going to add cooler blades on them, like this thing. This is probably from Games Workshop or something, I don't know. It's just a cooler sword than that little stick he had before. There we go, it looks more like a pirate cutlass. So you can just change anything out for anything. Like this spear here is much cooler than the spearhead that was on the previous. Look, you get the point. So there we go, that's the weapon changes. I think the heads are all, I think we're pretty much ready to try and make some coral. Tiny little 28mm scale coral reef. Now I kind of have an idea what I'm going to do. It usually involves the same thing I usually use for everything, which is super glue and baking powder. So my thinking is, if I cut off some of these little fibres from this synthetic paintbrush and maybe use some coconut fibres from, you know, the stuff that you put in flower beds to keep plants warm, and just dip it in the super glue, like really get it soaked in super glue, rub it around in the baking powder. Hopefully I'll get some nice little crusty stuff that looks like coral reef. We won't know until I edit this little bit here. That kind of looks like coral reef. I mean, needs a little bit more work. Let's dip it back in again. I mean, that looks like coral reef to me. Am I saying coral reef or is it just coral? Coral reef, is that like the collective term of a load of coral? Well, there you go. There's a coral reef. Now, obviously, they're going to require a little bit of trimming and a little bit of sticking together to make like bunches of coral. But that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I think they look that. I think I'm pretty happy with that. They look pretty good. But for when you can't be bothered to just cut all those little threads off, just get a little flambe torch and burn it off. You know, when you can't be bothered to cut, just burn. That's what I said to my hairdresser, stupidly. My hair looks a bit like a wig in this episode. I promise you it's not a wig. There's no way the hairdresser just took a blowtorch to my head. I mean it, I swear. Just ignore what I just said, actually. It was just like a joke that got out of hand. There's no way I have no hair and I'm wearing a wig. That's just the stupid Bill. Stupid Bill. Look, coral reef. And there we go. That's the technique I just invented of making coral or / coral reef at 28mm scale. Now, I've never seen anyone do it before. I mean, I don't know, there may be a video about it on YouTube. I've never seen it. You know, if I've never seen it, it doesn't exist. Like the curvature of the earth. But that, I mean, it does exist. So maybe... So I want these pirate mutants to have bits of coral just sticking out of their skin, you know, or even a coral head like that guy. It looks pretty painful, pretty grotesque, which is, you know, exactly what I'm going for, right up my street. This guy's got a bit of coral coming out of his eye, look at that. Now I've got lots of coral left and I want to stick them on the bases, but before we do that, we're going to use a little bit of crusted. Cue crusted! Now, everyone and their mum probably knows how to make crusted at this point, but I do get the odd comment saying, how do you make crusted? And so I thought I'd just Hanna-Barbera that back in the episode because, you know, just to answer that one person who's never seen a previous Bill Making Stuff episode and show them how to make crusted. Now, all these little bits of extra coral I'm going to stick them in the bases and actually make some nice bases for a change. Hi. It's me, it's Bill. I'm interrupting the video because this is the point in the video where you probably, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and like the video and comment and all that stuff that helps feed my children. This is what we call a call to action in the YouTube community. It's where we have to basically beg. If you enjoy this channel, if you enjoy this show, you know, if you enjoyed this video, go back and watch the other ones. There's loads of videos like this. I mean, well, there's obviously at least 82. Go back, watch the back catalogue, and if you really, really, really enjoy the show and you want to see it continue, consider going over to patreon.com and becoming a patron of the channel. Patreon, if you don't know, is a website where you can become a patron of the channel. You can basically be a producer of the channel. You throw a couple of quid my way every month and you keep the channel going. It's the only way this channel really does keep going. Now, I'm going to be honest, you don't essentially get much for it apart from the satisfaction of producing a show that you enjoy watching every couple of weeks, because every second of every day I spend making this show. I can't really spend any extra time making stuff for Patreon. I know, I'm really selling it, aren't I? It's like if you saw me in a pub and you wanted to buy me a pint of beer. It's like, you know, oh, I like your stuff, I'll buy you a pint of beer. It's the same thing, only I don't spend it all on beer. I'm quite partial to a bottle of wine. But anyway, I'm going to get on with the build because, you know, I can already see a few of my patrons getting a bit angsty, you know. Sorry, boss. I'll get back on with it. It didn't happen again. So time to sculpt. Whenever you kit bash something, you normally have little holes you want to fill or little bits you want to smooth over, and I use green stuff to do that. This is blue and yellow stuff that you combine together to make green stuff. Use a bit of Vaseline or some of your dad's petroleum jelly so it doesn't stick to your fingers. Now once this stuff is combined, it begins to cure and it becomes green, which is why it's called green stuff. It's quite tricky to use, but I use a few tools, a silicone tool, I use a little loop tool, I use this little scary dental tool. Dental tools are actually pretty good for sculpting. Basically, you want to use anything that can poke a little hole, can cut the thing, can make textures, can spread a thing. Just use your imagination. Cocktail sticks are normally pretty good. You know, this is one I made myself using old green stuff. We'll do more of that later because I think I'm going to have some green stuff left. That doesn't look like much, but it's going to be more than enough for what I'm going to use it for. And what I want to do is fill the holes and just basically add some weird crusty textures to these fellas. Now you could use green stuff or you could use Milliput. Milliput's a bit more powdery and you can get some fine details in there and it works well with water, but green stuff is more like chewing gum, like it's more rubbery, and when it cures it's more flexible, which is kind of good, but it does take a little bit more work. But you can get really good details with this stuff if you spend a long time wrestling with it. Now we want to make some weird fish eyes for these guys, so I'm drilling little holes and I've bought the tiniest little beads I could find in the world. I think they're now art beads, because that now art market is, that is oversaturated with beads and all sorts of little cool things that you can use for crafting. If you ever want to find any weird little bits and pieces for crafting miniatures, go and look for now art stuff, because it's just everything. Those eyes look terrible. So along with filling up holes and covering over little gaps where you've connected arms to other pieces and things like that, and placed in weird eyeballs, I want this stuff to be like an extension of the coral on the bodies. I want it to be all nice and crusty and textured and just look a bit more crustacean-like, I guess. So lots of little dimples, lots of little holes. I'm not very good at sculpting, and that kind of thing is pretty easy to do. So you should, give it a go. If you're going to try green stuff, just do some weird textures. It's a good way to practice. So looking back at this footage and narrating Z footage, I realise I haven't put any shells on my pyro mutant things, because I've got like a box full of tiny little shells that I intended to put on them somehow, but I just forgot to do it. I mean, they look pretty good. I'm not very good at sculpting green stuff anyway, but I quite enjoyed doing it. If you would like me to sculpt a miniature in green stuff one day, let me know down below. I'm intrigued. I'm kind of tempted to attempt it. I'm just annoyed I didn't use any shells. I'm going to stop going on about it now. Now these eyeballs were pretty tricky to get in there. I just about managed it. I couldn't manage it in focus, but look, they're kind of there. They look bulbous. Let's just see how they look when I paint the things. Now I've got lots of green stuff left, and when you've got lots of green stuff left, make yourself some green stuff sculpting tools. Now I'm going to make like a little texture roller thing here. Here's my little box of shells, I told you. What you want to do is find an interesting texture. You want to cover your green stuff in Vaseline so it kind of doesn't stick too bad, and then just roll the thing over the texture. It's a lot trickier than it sounds. You just have to be very careful not to put your finger right in there, and that's going to create a weird interesting texture when I roll that out onto some clay or stuff. Now this is a really easy tool to make, just basically a pin in a little old knife handle with a bit of green stuff holding it in, just a little pokey tool. Now this is an old paintbrush handle, and like the first tool where it's kind of like an inverted pattern, I want to make an outverted, extroverted, whatever the opposite of inverted is, with these little beads. So basically when I rub this on something, it would create little dimples. Oh, dimples. And here's the gang. Now I primed these in a bit of black spray paint and then highlighted from above with white spray paint, and we're going to paint them in colours with hairy sticks. But you're not here to hear me talk about painting. Painting time with Bill is boring time with Bill. Boring time with Bill is story time with Bill. That's the slogan. I'm sticking with it. Let's talk about these characters. So, these pirate mutant people aren't actually called pirate mutant people, funny enough. They're actually called deep troops, which is an abbreviation of deployable environmentally adaptive peacekeeping troops, which is a bit of a mouthful, and most people on the planet just call them crusties. Deep troops, although look kind of human, they're not really human. There's a bit of human DNA in there, but they were created in a lab as a genetic weapon. I say weapon, they're more like a genetic police force that they would deploy on planets that weren't really environmentally friendly for human beings, like low gravity or high gravity. They would adapt to any environment you could think of, really. They can even adapt to a vacuum in space. They could adapt to poisonous rainforests, to deep sea, for example. Now, they don't adapt instantaneously. The way they were deployed were in these giant egg sacs onto planet surfaces, where they basically are like little fetuses. They stay fetuses for years until they eventually adapt to the environment, and once they do, they're adapted for life. So thousands of years ago, when all of the galactic civilizations made peace, they all ceremoniously disposed of their weapons on the surface of the Gutterlands. They jettisoned them from space, left them there, and quarantined the planet, hoping no one would go there, hoping that it would just destroy itself. And the deep troops were one of these weapons. So forgotten about, these deep troops have been scattered all over the planet and have adapted to certain environments. Now, one deep troop pod landed in the Neon Sea, which is just east of the city of Respite, which I can show you right here on this little handy map I drew. So the deep troops have been on the planet of the Gutterlands for thousands of years. The colonists came and the rusters have been there, and no one's really met one. You know, not until recently. No one ever ran into a deep troop, and the reason being is that they're not really a soldier. They're not really an invading force. They're just there to keep the peace. They're basically peacekeeping police troops. And they lived in the Neon Sea, and there's not a lot of law breaking going on in the Neon Sea until one day a fisherman decided to go out there and use bombs to fish. Now, this idiot fisherman basically went up to the rusty peaks and scavenged a load of what he thought were bombs, grenades, napalm, things like that, basically just to fish with, to blow the water up, to let all the fish float to the surface, take the fish back to Respite and eat them. But what he didn't realise was that one of the bombs was actually a singularity bomb, a black hole bomb. The idiot fisherman used a black hole bomb in the Neon Sea and basically created a singularity, a black hole in the middle of the sea. Now, it's stable, it basically sucks in any matter within a certain distance, but it displaced all of the deep troops and killed the fisherman at the same time. So with the deep troops displaced, they interact with other people. They find people on the planet, and they are peacekeeping police troops. They're not really soldiers. They're not going to hurt you if you don't break the law. The only thing is, the simple fact that you're on the Gutterlands in the first place is trespassing. It's breaking the law. Selling weapons, finding bombs and selling meat is breaking the law. Basically, everyone on the Gutterlands is breaking the law. So the deep troops have to enforce that law, and it doesn't always go so well. The deep troops have adapted to living under the sea, and they can't adapt again. Once they've adapted once, that's it. They're pretty useless on land. They can breathe for a while, they can fight for a while, but they can't really do much on land. So they tend to stick by the coastlines, around the small chains of islands and the smithereens and places like that. It makes travelling across the sea very treacherous, especially for anyone who shouldn't be on Gutterlands, which is everyone. So you float over one of their little bases, the deep troops are going to come up, and that's why they got the reputation of being like pirates, basically, because they're trying to enforce the law, but they're more like coast guards. So when anyone plans to travel to another continent via the sea, there's lots of horror stories that gets passed around about the crusties that come up from the deeps and they drag you down and you never see them again. That's kind of what they are. I mean, let's face it, they're pretty horrific looking, which really is just like a circumstance of them adapting to sea life. They've got crustacean-like hands and big yellow eyes on the side of their heads like fish, blue skin, gills. You know, they're pretty horrific, but they really are just policemen. So ironically, the one planet in the whole galactic system that requires policing of its people has people that don't want police whatsoever. You know, it's a hard beat for a Deep Trooper. I hope you enjoyed that. That's my little story about the Deep Troopers, or the Crusties, you choose. So there we go, another faction for the Gutterlands, the Deep Troops, or the Crusties. I prefer Crusties. Sounds quite similar to Rusters, but it's, you know, it's a different word completely. They're not very imaginative in Respite. That's what I'm saying, you know. I have a confession to make. I actually quite enjoyed painting them. I think I would have enjoyed painting them more without the camera in my face, but I did enjoy painting them, and I think I'm getting slightly better. What do you think? And also, comment down below which of these miniatures is your favourite. Which one do you like the best? Which one is the best at swimming? We don't know that yet. We don't know. But in your comment, also include a name that you think they should have. You know, if you've got a favourite, then name them. I may not use the name, but you know, it's quite funny to see what sort of names you lot come up with. And what else was there? I don't know what I'm asking you. That's it. I'm going to the UK Game Expo in Birmingham in the end of this month, I think. I think it's like the 1st of June. I don't know. I'll be there for the Saturday and the Sunday. So if you'd like to come and meet me, get a sticker, you know, an awkward conversation. I might post on my patrons Discord where I'm going to be exactly, and then we can all kind of meet and have like a little bit of a patron meetup if anyone lives up there for some reason. So hopefully I'll see you there. Glamour shots coming up in a minute. I'll see you next episode. I hope you enjoyed it. That's about it. Will you shut up? And here we are, the Crusties, or the Deep Troops, depending on how respectful you are of their culture. I'm really happy with these miniatures. I think they look pretty good. I'm quite looking forward to using them in some skirmish game that may come out in the future. I hope you like them too. Let me know down below. Looking at them now, I'm quite happy with the paint job. I think I quite enjoyed painting these, and I think I'm getting slightly better. If I had more time, maybe they'd look even better. I mean, obviously they would look better, but you know, I want to get these videos out to you. And also, looking at them now, they look kind of like the Rogue Troopers from 2000 AD, mixed with the pirates from Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm just so unoriginal. It doesn't matter. Thank you, patrons. I know I say every video that this channel wouldn't exist without you, and it really wouldn't. If you enjoy these videos, consider joining Patreon. It's the only way I can make them. It's not even a